Our second speaker is Mr. Don Aravind. Don's extensive creative oeuvre spans both film and television. He has worked on a number of well-received television shows in English, Tamil, and Mandarin for MediaCorp. And his award-winning short films have been screened locally and internationally at film festivals. He has been very active in the film scene in Singapore, and in 2019, he directed an episode for the HBO Asia series, Food Law. His short film, Angel, premiered at the 28th Singapore International Film Festival, and his latest, Silk, was screened at the 31st Singapore International Film Festival. This afternoon, Don will speak to us about the challenges of adapting text for screen. Don, please.
Thank you for having me today and a great introduction. Also, thank you, Khan. I just wanted to add something. I don't know that he's around. I actually got to work with him many years ago, like when I was a film student. So it's just nice to see him back here now, being a teacher. Okay, I think there was already an introduction given about me. So just to let the audience know, so just in case if there are questions later, this will help them in their context, whatever. So my background, I actually do a lot of television for a living. I was a film student back then, and then I studied film. But of course, being a filmmaker in this country, it's quite a struggle, I would say. So that's another debate by itself. But I'm fortunate to be doing a lot of television, and I try to bring about the language of film whenever I can. And I would say that whenever I can for television, because it's still a very tough thing to cross over. So at least I try in my own capacity. Of course, beyond that, I've also worked on web series and also commercial content and short films, commissioned short films. So yep, that's a bit of my background. Okay, so I want to talk about basically adapting the challenges of text to screen. So I think it's a very broad spectrum when we just say text to screen. So I think I would like to narrow it down to something where text being a written text by writers and authors, and not original text written just for film or TV. And the reason being because there have not been much of this over here. And since I do a lot of work in the Tamil language, and I thought that would be the best scenario, the best thing to narrow down into. So before I go in that, for audience who are not familiar with the Tamil sector in our media industry, and I would just like to narrow it down to television. We have our channel called Vasantham, and how it started off basically, it is a free-to-air television channel today, and then this whole network, this TV network, is focused towards the Singapore Indian community. And it was originally launched on 1st September 1995 as Premier 12. So I think I was probably primary 6 back then. And then Tamil programming was included only in the year 2000, when the channel was rebranded as Central, and then Vasantham Central in 2008. So it became a full-time channel back then. And then, so this was how the Vasantham Central was formed, and it's the time belt now for Indian programming. And also, just a side note, it was actually spearheaded by our ex-late Minister Balaji Sadasivan. Okay, so when you say Tamil and screen work, and when we say TV work, basically the dominance here in this country is television. And then now we have this thing called dramas, and then they are more or less called long format dramas, where basically you see like anywhere from 25 episodes to 50 episodes, going on a daily belt on Vasantham Central. So if there are audiences here, they would be familiar with some of these series that have been on air past few years. Sadly, I would say this with a very heavy heart, we don't have much films. The only two known mainstream films that have gone into cinemas would be this film called Kurukshetram by this filmmaker Titi Dawamani, who's also a familiar name on television. And of course, we have acclaimed director K. Rajagopal, who did a film called Yellow Bird, who went to Cannes back then. So this is the kind of industry that we have for when we talk about Tamil creations. So predominantly, it's a lot of TV work. And so in this space, how much of adapted work from text to screen that has come out on mainstream media is what I want to focus about. And the only known adapted work so far have been two. One is called Adukku Veetu Annasamy, which was created by a predominant and phenomenal writer, cultural medallion, Mr. P. Krishnan, who used to be a radio DJ, a radio playwright, and he wrote this as a radio play in 1960s. And then eventually in 2018, it was adapted into a TV drama. So I just give a bit of background. After this, I will talk more about this because I never got to work on this. So the insights from this would be from the creator himself. And the other known work, which was just released this year, was this horror series called Marma Mayday. And this actually was a radio play by a very well-known writer called M.K. Narayanan, who wrote this play in 1968. Interestingly, he's never published it as a book, but his writings have been archived and they are available as 7 volumes in the National Library Board. So I think you have to go to the reference library to read this text. So for those who might be interested, you can do that. So this was adapted into a TV drama in 2021. And there was a series that this same series was adapted into a TV drama back then in the 90s, but I only was aware that it was when I was doing this drama. So I tried to search in the archives. It's not something I had watched. So I'm unable to talk about that, but apparently it has been done also in the 90s. So these are the only 2 known adaptations from text to screen. So Marma Mayday, this show, I had worked on it. I directed 4 episodes. So I'll also speak about it much later on, my experiences on it. So the main thing that I like to focus on is actually I had this opportunity to work on this short film, which was a commissioned work for the Writers' Festival in 2014. And it was an original, it was adapted from original story by Kamala Devi Aravindan. So in Tamil, they call it Mugadukal. And so literally in English, it means pigs. And so I adapted it into a short film called At Your Doorstep. In Tamil, it's called Un Vasari. I co-wrote actually this with a screenwriter called Wesley Leon. And this experience was the first time for me actually adapting something and translating into film. So maybe before I go more about it, maybe I would like to screen an extract so that it'll be easy for you all to understand my experience on it.
Nice. விக்னேஷ், நீ ஏன் இங்க வந்த?
மா, பாட்டி மறுபடியும் தரையில சூப் போயிட்டாங்க.
ஜெயந்தி, நீ ஏன் இங்க வந்த? விக்னேஷ், ரூமுக்கு போ.
என்னங்க?
ஜெயந்தி, தயவு செஞ்சு சுந்தரத்துக்கிட்ட சொல்லாத.
என்ன
உங்க அம்மா பண்ணி வச்சிருக்கிற கருமத்தை பாருங்க.
என்னம்மா இது? உங்ககிட்ட எத்தனை வாட்டி சொல்றது?
சுந்தரம், ஏதோ அவசரத்தில் அப்படி செஞ்சிட்டேன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். இது எப்படி நடந்துச்சுன்னு கூட எனக்கே தெரியலப்பா.
தெரியல எதை கேட்டாலும் தெரியல. மூத்திரம் வருதுன்னா டாய்லெட் போகணும்னு தெரியாதா? அதுன்னு அவ்வளவு பெரிய கஷ்டமா? இப்படியா நடுவிட்ட பெஞ்சு வைப்பாங்க? இவ்வளவு அசிங்கமா நடந்துக்கிறீங்களா? உங்களுக்கே கேவலமா இல்ல?
ஜெயந்தி, எனக்கு புரியுது.
நான் படிக்கும்போது நீங்க டிவி பார்க்க கூடாதுன்னு அம்மா சொன்னாங்க.
என்னடா வளர்ற? அப்படியா சொன்னாங்க?
பாட்டி நீங்க குளிக்கலையா?
விக்னேஷ், மரியாதையா பேசு.
பாட்டி ஸ்மெல்லி.
இருடா, நான் என்ன பண்றேன்னு பாரு.
மானமே போயிடுச்சுல அம்மாடா.
ஏன் வீட்டை விட்டு வெளியே போகும்போது கேட்டை பூட்டிட்டு போகணும்னு உங்கள்கிட்ட எத்தனை தடவை சொல்றது? போன தடவை அப்படிதான் மீகோரிங் சாப்பிட போறோன்னு கேட்டை ஃபுல்லா திறந்து போட்டு போயிட்டீங்க. திருட எவனாவது பூந்து எல்லாத்தையும் கொள்ளை அடிச்சிருந்தானே என்னத்த பண்றது? எத்தனை தடவை சொன்னாலும் உங்க மர மண்டையில ஏன் ஏற மாட்டேங்குது?
தெரியாம செஞ்சுட்டேம்மா.
ஏன் எங்களை இப்படி சித்திரவதைப்படுத்துறீங்க? எனக்கு மட்டும் உங்களை திட்டணும்னு ஆசையா?
Okay, so that was just a middle portion of the film, and if y'all want to watch the full film, the link will be on my slides, and actually you can just Google it, you can find it. It's also available. Unfortunately, for time constraints, I can't show the full film, but basically, what the film actually talks about is basically this character called Grandma Kamachi. She's a widow who lives all by herself in a 2-room flat, and she suffers from a series of illnesses. And she's got incontinence, high blood pressure, and flatulence, diabetes. And she has reached a point where she desires to be with her late husband, as she's unable to handle her state of abandonment and loneliness. And ever since, her son has moved out of the house with his wife and young children. So Kamachi, actually, she misses her son and her grandchildren. However, she's unable to forget all these verbal insults by her daughter-in-law. And she's really upset that her son actually listens to the words of her daughter-in-law. And there's all this conflict that's going on within this story. So the original story by Kamala Devi. Kamala Devi is actually a very known Tamil author. In fact, she has just released this book called Sambawang. And so the original short story by her actually consisted of more characters. And but then just to make it into something more concise, I sticked onto just Grandma Kamachi as a central character. And I tried to use a bit of a visual tone poem that was juxtaposed with quite a bit of visual metaphors to represent Kamachi's abandonment, loneliness, and suffering, actually. And the thing is, this was also the first short film that I mentioned, I've worked on, which was adapted from a book. And I had didn't have much experience on how to go about it. So I actually had Wesley's help with me. And I think what we wanted to do was we didn't want to take this whole thing from a book and then make it into a film. So I think at the end of the day, Wesley is also he's also a film lecturer. At the same time, he was my senior back in film school. And I think we believe that screen time and real time and book time, maybe there's a difference. And how do we then present this as a film? So that was our challenge back then. But also to stay true to the essence of the book, because at the end of the day, this was part, the project background it's for the Writers' Festival. And so we need to keep elements that were also consistent with the book. And then we came to a consensus that it had to have a different ending from the original story. And we wanted to focus more on the main character's state of mind. We kind of like, the thing is, we never met Kamala Devi because we were just afraid. I mean, she's such a senior. So we were just very afraid, like, oh, what if she like scolds me and says like, how can you destroy my story and stuff like that. So we thought, okay, what if she had extended this story? Maybe it might have such an ending. So you all need to see the full film to know what the ending. It's actually very different from the book. And I think this particular story by Kamala Devi actually resonated with me as it reflected a situation back then with my own late grandmother. And it helped me understand the main character, and I felt that the film should be dark and quiet and should add layers to symbolize the main character's loneliness. And so coming back to that, the challenges actually that we faced actually starts from the story itself, because whatever that is written as a book, there wasn't an intention to make it into a screen work. There might be, for other examples, where maybe there's a piece of writing, there's a piece of book where they're already planning to make it into a film. But, for in this case, I think when Kamala Devi Aravindan wrote it, it was pure from her point of view, her story and stuff. The differences it had was, I think, her original story had Kamachi being arrested for having an illegal immigrant and stuff like that. So we felt it was too much for a short film. At the end of the day, I think a short film has a structure where it has to have a very concise antagonist, protagonist, and make the viewer more or less instill what we're trying to tell. And then, of course, there's also this thing called cinema has a language by itself. And I believe that cinema as a language, we can also present it without any dialogue. So that was what we attempted this time. And the most important thing, I think, to complement the text and not to like just take it as a title and then just move on about it. Okay. So I think maybe I might be running a bit of short of time, but what happened, so that was my experience. If to go on further onto other works that have been developed into script to screen, of course, you can watch this program called Adakavita Nasami, which is available on MeWatch. I believe there is also subtitles for it. I will summarize. I think this was created by this person called SSV, SS Vigneshwaran. He created this into a TV show from P. Krishnan. So what he had told me, just to summarize it, is that he felt that the work back then, the writing of P. Krishnan was a bit too. It had this moral encompass there, which worked back then. That time, the radio play was actually dealing with being a good citizen. So in the 1960s and 70s, we had the Good Samaritan campaign and Don't Litter and Be Good to Your Neighbor, all these campaigns. So all this was incorporated that, which was probably part of the national agenda into, which was why it was made into a radio play. So he felt when he was adapting it in 2018, he needed to make it a bit more commercialized. I mean, this is from his words. And he played a lot with wordplay. He believed Tamil being a beautiful language, he had to use a lot of wordplay and sometimes use slapstick, but not overdo it to reach out to the audience. At the end of the day, when it comes to a TV medium, I think the OB markers remain as to like how many people have watched. I think that's the reality it becomes today. So that was for Adakavita Nasami. Marana Mede is also available on MeWatch. It was a horror series and original created as a radio play and then went into a written format. My experience for Marana Mede actually wasn't the best of because it was very tough to create a series like this. And back then, I think the radio play actually had a lot of elements of dark horror as well. And these were the things that when we present also in a TV format, we also had to conform to a lot of the broadcast regulations as well. So, and I think horror by itself, it's very challenging to do. And I really wish that in time to come, such series, we have a bigger budget and a bigger network of people to actually help us do it. So I would summarize this point. Before I actually end off, I felt that screening these two videos were very important for today's speech because they were my earlier works, which I got to work with two writers, J.M. Sali and Rama Kannabiran. They were also Cultural Medallion winners, but I did a documentary about them, and then I got to do two very short microfilms that were actually broadcasted in the documentary. And I felt that has been the most holistic experience because nothing was changed. I just visualized film language into their work.
பார்வதியை பார்த்து ரொம்ப காலமாகிவிட்டது. அவளுக்கு ஆசை இருக்காதா? போய் பார்த்துவிட்டு வாயேன். உன்மேல் உயிரையே வைத்திருக்கிறாள். போன முறை போயிருந்தபோது உன்னை பற்றி எவ்வளவோ கேட்டாள். அம்மாவின் இந்த சொற்கள் என் ஆசைக்கு தூபம் போட்டன. நெஞ்சு முழுவதும் பார்வதி, பார்வதிதான். பார்வதியை பார்த்து 2 ஆண்டுகளுக்கு மேலாகி இருந்தது. இப்பொழுது எவ்வளவோ மாறியிருப்பாள். எப்படி இருப்பாள்? எத்தனையோ எண்ணங்கள். உரிமைக்காரிதானே பார்வதி. ஆசை அரும்பி மலர்ந்து ஒரே இன்ப மனம்.
அவளும் வந்து கலந்து கொண்டாள் என்ன? நினைப்பு தழைக்கவில்லை, நெஞ்சில் முழுமை உருப்பெறவில்லை. பார்வதி நெஞ்சில் அணுகி கலந்து விடுவாள் என்று துடித்தேன். மெல்ல மெல்ல விலகி அப்பால் இன்னும் அப்பால் போவது போன்ற நினைவு பிரம்மை, தாபம்.
Okay, so that was by J.M. Sali. There's another one by Rama Kannabiran. I'll share that's also about a minute.
பார்த்திபன், என் மனைவி இறந்த பிறகு நான் தனியன் ஆனேன். கடந்த 1.5 ஆண்டுகளாக நான் பட்ட தனிமை துயரை எழுத்தில் வடிக்க இயலாது. அந்த தனிமையிலும் ஓர் அனுகூலம் இருந்தது. அந்த ஏகாந்தத்தில்தான் பல உண்மைகளை என் நெஞ்சம் உணர்ந்து தெளிந்தது. மேலோட்ட ஆரவார வாழ்க்கையே வாழ்ந்ததால் அப்போது என்னால் ஆழமாக சிந்திக்க முடியவில்லை. அங்குமிங்கும் நிலையில்லாமல் திரியும் வாழ்க்கையிலே ஆழமான சிந்தனைக்குத்தான் நேரம் ஏது? மேல்நாட்டு விவகாரங்களில் மூழ்கி அவர்கள் பழக்க வழக்கங்களை பெரிதாய் போற்றி கடைப்பிடித்தும் என்னையும் என்னை போன்ற பலரையும் இங்குள்ள ஆஸ்திரேலிய ஆங்கிலேயர்கள் எட்ட வைத்தே நடத்துகிறார்கள். சம மதிப்பு கொடுப்பதில்லை. என்ன செய்வது? காலம் கடந்துதான் எனக்கு ஓர் உண்மை புரிகிறது. பொருளாதாரத்தில் உயர்ந்துவிட்ட என் போன்ற தமிழர்கள் ஆரம்ப காலத்தில் என்ன செய்திருக்க வேண்டும்? பின்தங்கிய நம் இனத்தாரை மேலே உயர்த்த கல்வி, தொழிற்துறைகளிலே அவர்களுக்கு வழிகாட்டி பொருள் உதவி அளித்திருக்க வேண்டும். பிழை செய்தோம். இனப்பற்று, மொழிப்பற்றை நான் மறந்ததற்கு பிராயசித்தமாக விரைவில் உனக்கு 30,000 வெள்ளி பணம் அனுப்பி வைப்பேன். வசதி குன்றிய தமிழ் மாணவர்கள் மேற்கல்வி தொடர தமிழர் முன்னேற்றம் என்ற கல்வி நிதியிலே அப்பணத்தை சேர்த்துவிடு. இப்போதெல்லாம் எனக்கு யார் துணை தெரியுமா? திருவள்ளுவர் தான். ஆம், ரூபாவுக்கு நீ வழங்கிய பிறந்தநாள் பரிசு அவளுக்கு பயன்படவில்லை, எனக்குத்தான் பயன்பட்டு வருகிறது.
Yeah, so actually, if you saw the second snippet, the second video by Rama Kannabiran, excellent novelist. He was very gracious enough to actually appear in the film because in his story, he writes this story about to his friend. So I think very strangely, this was my first work as a TV director, I think 7-8 years ago. And I still remember these books because it's the first script to screen, which I felt honestly, it was very authentic in that sense that it stayed true to the author. But of course, there isn't much opportunities to create works like that. And I think which just comes back to the the request I would like to make would be also that more people should come forward. And I would say, at least for in Tamil, how we adapt text to screen. And I think generally we also don't have much writers around actually when writers to write for TV and film. And I think generally a lot of us struggle with that as well. So, which is also partly because there isn't a very great support system for writers. There's a writer, director, and kind of thing, but pure art of writing for screen, sadly, it's a debate by itself. So I really hope that there'll be more people coming in and working together. And I would like to end my presentation, and hopefully I'll answer more Q&A.